TitleMatchNetwork.com.
Well known now for speaking out against drugs in wrestling and speaking to the kids. And from what you were saying earlier in the interview, you've been doing this for a long time, but I guess now you're just more prominently known about that. What inspired you to start putting that time in and speaking to kids and working with these organizations and doing what you do?
Well, my program is called Champion Choices. It's more about making the right choices in life. I mean, people always associate it with not doing steroids or something. Mm-hmm. It's not about not just doing drugs. It's choices. It's about surrounding yourself with positive people. It's teaching kids how to set goals and take action towards goals. And of course, it's about not doing drugs or prescription pills and things like that. But it is such an inspirational message that we have. And we put on a full production presentation, which is really entertaining. And it's a 1 hour presentation. And it's something that in life, they always say, if you ever find your passion, you never have to work because you love what you do.
Yeah.
I not only found my passion, I really found my calling in life. And I enjoy it that much.
Wow.
So for me to ever want to do anything else, I can't ever see it happening. I will do this as long as they'll give me a microphone.
You right after the horrible Chris Benoit tragedy, you did a lot of speaking out against drugs in wrestling and the problems that are going on in the business today. How did they find you? Because it just seemed like, you really weren't out there as a national presence, but then all of a sudden you're out there. How did they find you and get in touch with you? And today in 2009, how bad do you think the problem is today in wrestling?
Good questions. How they found me was I did a radio show in Orlando, Florida. And it's the number one radio show in Orlando, and someone from one of the news organizations heard it and contacted someone else. And next thing you know, I got a call from a producer from Nancy Grace, and then a producer from Dan Abrams, and a producer from Glenn Beck, and it just snowballed. Then it was like it seemed like I was on every night on a show. Sometimes like 2 or 3 shows a night.
Yeah.
But in the professional wrestling thing is that guys can say whatever they want, but a lot of these guys were our friends that died, and guys that I really cared about too. I'd like to find someone that didn't like Eddie Guerrero. You know what I mean? There were some guys that we loved, and when people say, well, the problem is with wrestling is there's this code of silence that if you speak out, you're an idiot, or you're full of it, or you're weak, or whatever the reason, But there's 2 types of people. There's a person that says, man, something needs to be done. And there's a person that goes out there and does something. I got so sick of being that first person that said, man, why don't they do something? Come over. Why isn't it regulated? Why isn't the drug testing stricter? Why is it so easy for us to pass these tests, And after Chris Benoit killed his little boy and his wife, I decided to speak out. Not about point. You never heard me say, I saw so-and-so do this or so-and-so did that. It was all about me. It's what I did. Yeah. I know what I did. I know what everybody else did. I knew there's a problem in a professional sport. And if someone didn't do something, more and more people are going to keep dying. Yeah. And that's why I decided to speak out.
Are you surprised that Congress never did anything about it, that they talked about it and they had somebody was on Dan Abrams' show with you guys talking about it, but then nothing ever really came of it?
Yeah, I believe it was Cliff Stearns was on, Congressman. Yeah. Senators Cliff Stearns was on Dan Abrams with us, and they kept talking about doing something about it, about regulating and looking into it more and more. But, as time goes by, I guarantee you if this was professional baseball or professional football and you've seen this many deaths happening to players, there certainly would be hearings on Capitol Hill.
Yeah. During you had some interesting experiences when you were doing that circuit at that time. Steve Blackman, you got into it with him a little bit on one of the shows. And here's a guy that you shared a locker room with, you wrestled, you drew money with. Were you surprised that somebody like Steve, who was there and saw the same things you did, was so defensive?
It wasn't just Steve. I mean, there was guys.
Well, he was just an example. I was pointing out as a guy that you wrestled, you drew money with, that kind of thing.
It kind of like, let's wake up.
Yeah.
Guys I have now wrestled, and I have the list. I mean, these are actual people. I've now wrestled 27 guys who are dead.
Mm.
And the 3 ladies that we work with that are no longer with
Yeah.
us, you know? I mean, when you can't find a soldier that comes back from Iraq that knows 27 people have been killed in Iraq.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is America, a professional sport, a fake sport. I wrestle against 27 guys who are dead. If you imagine an NBA player or a football player goes, yeah, I played against 47 guys or 37 guys who are dead.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be crazy. You know, but you know that's just Marc Mero, the silly bastard. You know.
Yeah. What surprised you the most about doing all those shows?
I guess it just surprised me that there wasn't as much support as I was hoping for.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, the guys like Superstar Billy Graham came out, and guys like Bruno and guys I did shows with were very supportive. But guys in the business, I was hoping for more guys that would come out and be supportive.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Kennedy's comments? He made a lot of comments about what you guys were saying and saying that things were clean, and then wound up breaching the wellness policy a couple weeks later himself.
Right. Well, it didn't surprise me. You
Yeah.
know, and it wouldn't surprise me if we see more and more guys that are going to be busted, and we're still seeing it. You know, it's just a matter of time before someone else dies.
Yeah.
And wait till a bigger star dies. That's current on the current roster right now.
Yeah. Are you surprised that the talk shows just kind of dropped it altogether? You know, you guys, like you said, sometimes you're on 2 or 3 shows a night,
right?
And I don't think anybody's talked about it in 2 or 3 years.
No.
Yeah.
And even with Andrew Martin dying a few months ago, you know, there was no mention of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, does that surprise you?
You know what? It's hard to find anything that really surprises me anymore.
Yeah.
I came from the wrestling world.
Yeah,
Nothing surprises me.
It's true.
But it's sad because speaking at so many schools, I see all the kids that will do anything to become a professional wrestler.
Yeah.
So if there's any way they can make it to being a professional wrestler, and it takes doing steroids or whatever it takes, they'll do it.
Yeah. Were you surprised when Finley came on and he started saying, I think he said something like, you never had anything to do with the wrestling business, and you had, I don't know, 17, 20 years. I don't know how long you were actually in it for.
Yeah.
You know, it seemed like a lot of these guys were attacking you, but not talking about the problem.
Well, I think it's the easiest thing to do is attack me. You know, it's, Finley said that you haven't been in the locker room recently, but recently we've seen all the things that have happened. I mean, we were talking, this was what, 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yeah, 3 years ago.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the time, there was still a lot of problems.
Yeah. Do you think that they've cleaned it up more today than it was?
I would think so. I would think guys are being a lot more careful because, you know, number one, they don't want to be the example.
Yeah.
But we've just seen recently Jeff Hardy.
Yeah.
Obviously he had a lot of drugs at his home, so it's not as clean as maybe they're making it out to be.
Yeah. It seems like, and I wonder if this worries you, it seems like TNA has become something of a safe haven for guys that fail or breach the wellness policies. You know, guys from Kurt Angle to Booker T that have had their issues, you know, with the wellness policy are told to clean up or get out, and they get out and get a job, you know, with in weeks at TNA. That's got to concern you a little bit.
When you say concern me, I mean, the guys are going to do what the guys are going to do.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing I can do about it. My focus in my life is to help people not make the same mistakes that I made.
Mm.
You know, I'm not, my speech is not to TNA or the WWE or whatever. I wish they would have a program similar to mine. I wish they would even consider even looking at what I'm doing to how we help students. I got emailed today about a student who was going to commit suicide until she heard me speak.
Yeah.
And it's very powerful because it really makes people think about what is really important in this life.
Yeah, absolutely. HGH seems to be a problem because nobody can test for it, or nobody has instituted a test for it, at least in the WWE anyway. What are the dangers in HGH, and you know, what are the ramifications that could come out of this?
Again, you know, it's gonna determine when someone actually gets either busted for it because they got caught with it, or has a serious health issue or dies.
Yeah.
And then it's all gonna hit the fan again.
Yeah. What's your advice? I mean, at least here on tape, obviously, these are wrestling fans that are going to be watching this interview, but maybe they have sons, daughters, or younger brothers, nephews that'll be watching it with them. What's your advice for them or kids that get into athletics that might be tempted by, taking a quote unquote shortcut?
It is just a shortcut. I mean, ultimately, you got to be proud of who's looking back at you in the mirror every day. And that goes with any of your choices.
Yeah.
If I could ever turn back the clock, I wish I never did drugs. That's the one thing in my life I really, really wish I never would have done. And it's a mistake that I made, but now I've turned into a real powerful learning experience in my life, because now I can share my mistakes and my problems I'm having in my life now with kids, health issues that I don't know what's going to happen the rest of my life.
Yeah. Bruno Sammartino has said, everybody talks about Bruno getting in, going into the WWE Hall of Fame. And he told me, he said, I'll do it, but they're going to have to let me go up there and make a speech about steroids in wrestling and children. You think that's ever going to happen?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't see. Well, you know what? I shouldn't even say that. You never know with Vince.
Yeah.
Every time you think you got him pegged, he's a chameleon. You never know.
Yeah.
He allows some of the craziest things to happen, and then does something completely opposite of what you might think. I would love to see Bruno in the Hall of Fame. If anybody's deserving of being in the Hall of Fame,
Yeah.
I mean, he's one of the greatest that ever laced up the boots.
Yeah.
TitleMatchNetwork.com